Hello, I'm Dan Lutz, and I'm addressing the abundance-minded people of the world, especially those that have been following the GCR or RV. I did a video about 1 week ago that addressing the issue of the big lie. And I had an interview with Stefan Rowe of projectspeak.net and also gocamelot.com. He is associated with the Manna World Holding Trust, and we went into a lot of the information. And it basically is really talking about who's behind the GCR, who has been behind the GCR. And my involvement in the GCR has been under the assumption I'm working with the quote-unquote white hats, even though I know the black hats were there and had done it before. So anyway, there was a new blog that was posted on projectspeak.net, and I wanted to go over that with you, and then we're going to go into a new interview that I just did with Stefan just yesterday. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Okay, and I highly encourage everybody to go to projectspeak.net. I will put the link down below, as well as gocamelot.com, and register to get regular updates and join the movement. So this is the main part of the site, but it talks about the sovereign people of the earth acting knowledgeably. So let's get some knowledge. So let me go over here to the blog, post it, which has prompted me to contact Stefan about actually seeing what's going on. So here it is. This is from February 19th, Speak Update. As reported on the THI show on Thursday, February 14th, 2019, the Manna World Holding Trust foreclosed on the Federal Reserve, calling in a debt of 2.8 quadrillion. The ownership of this debt was turned over to the Department of the Treasury to take action and seize all assets held by the Federal Reserve if they failed to pay within 24 hours. They failed to pay. Their charter had already been revoked. The deep state has had such a stranglehold on the government that they had prevented all types of legal action from actually having an impact on impact that would free funding for the people to prevent the complete collapse of the financial system that had been operating within the negative liquidity for almost a year. But today it was just reported to me that the Department of the Treasury is actually going to take action against the Federal Reserve to seize their assets for default on their debt. I think we're about to have our country back. Tank. GoCamelot.com. So that was what prompted me. So this was very interesting news. Now, on the side of QAnon, if you're a follower of QAnon, you will also may have picked up that there are certain things going on in the Federal Reserve, and it may be of interest to see that those things are paralleling what is being told by this blog and what's happening with the Manna World Holding Trusts. There are clues that there are certain things that are going to be done on February 21st, and we're already seeing some of these things take shape. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go ahead and this introduction, and then we're going to go right into the interview that I shot yesterday. Hello. Let's start a music interlude.
Very nice, very nice.
I was just hunting around for them, and then I saw your message. We're ready to go on. So how you doing?
Good, man. Pretty exciting times, actually. You know, we got a lot going on.
Yeah, I could say it's been a little bit exciting around here. my contacts in the GCR realm, the whole realm of GCR, they're looking at today being the day that they were going to get paid out. Of course, then they got the message, oh, tomorrow at 2.
Yeah,
Oh,
I didn't include that in my report, but they were promised again. Every bank was promised that today would be the day that the GCR would finally pay out. But like I said, that's not going to happen. You know?
yeah,
No.
it's right up there with Santa Claus is coming, right? to deposit the gifts under the tree, and if there is no Santa Claus, there's no gifts. So,
Yeah.
So I've, I'm, my, I actually was just looking through some of the stuff that I was going through that I got out of China. One second. Yeah, I think I'm getting a delivery. So
Look so nice there, man. Looks so nice. Look like you're well tanned.
well, I don't know. I've been out in the sun a little bit. I try to avoid it as much as possible, but I get a little bit in because I'll turn red more than brown.
I understand.
Yeah, the lobster effect. So so I was going through some of my older events in China and looking at all these historical bonds, the golden guns, all these things that I've held in my hands, right?
Right.
And put on ledger for the GCR, starting with the Super Pacellis, the farmers bonds, or plum blossom boxes, Treaty of Versailles boxes, FRNs, everything.
Yeah.
And everyone's upset and said, "Oh, this isn't real," and so on and so on. So what the reality is that there were a lot of people in higher level positions around the world who are believing in this because they were told they're going to get paid out by someone.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And
well, the bonds is one of the hardest things I think for people because the bonds were a different level than the currency, right? I mean, anybody kind of bought into the currency, but usually the people who are like yourself, right, who are dealing with the historic bonds, historical assets, and it really kind of upset me actually too when I found out what they did, because what they did was they cashed in all of those bonds. They already redeemed them. They turned them in. They registered them to the trust, right, as the asset redemption program. I'm not sure what year that was, but I want to say it was like 2005. Then they started selling them the paper that were actual bonds. I mean, they're legit bonds, but they were already redeemed. And then they started selling them back to people to make even more money. I mean, so they stole people's bonds, right? And what they would often do is they would give them an SKR, right? And the SKR was all mirrored accounts. So I actually met the guy who created the echelon system. And the echelon system is when we talk about like the gray screens, that's the whole gray screen system. And that created, I mean, he was a prodigy and he was recruited by the CIA when he was very young, like 11 years old. And he made this system. And the way the system would work is that basically, you transfer money and it would mirror the money, the asset there in the account. So after a while, though, there has to be something for it to mirror. And what they figured out how to do is they figured out how to siphon the actual asset, keep the mirror there. That's why people would have SKRs for years and years and years, right? And they'd be like, I have $150 million in my SKR. And that's why Wells Fargo had all of those fake accounts. That's why they got in trouble, because they made all of these accounts for SKRs. And legally, you're only allowed to hold an SKR for like 30 days. So, I mean, that's the sad part of it, is all those historical bonds, historical assets were good. I had a Chinese war bond from in that. So
I'm just showing a few things here. Just share my screen. These are just so I have to change each time. Like these are some of the ones that I was just dealing with. You know, people were excited, you know, all about these type of things, right? And, you know, starting with, like, say this one, you know, the Super Pacellis.
The Super was a big surprise to me.
What's that?
The Super Pacelli was a big surprise to me.
Why was it a surprise?
Well, because I mean, you know, getting your hands on a real Super Pacelli was a big deal for a long time. And I remember when I brought that up to Kim, you know, and Kim can check, you know, every single asset. And she immediately knew that those had already been redeemed.
Mm. Yeah, it seemed to be that around 2014 there was this the HARP program, Historical Asset Redemption Program, that came out. This was, you know, at the time when they were also trying to do this flip in Malta, you know, with the group there, and so they had taken in all these Super Pacelli, but it didn't stop, right? It just, like, yeah, there was a deadline, and then they opened it back up again, and everyone's bringing more in, and then they closed it down again and brought more in. So this was every year it was going on now. And there's supposedly a cap. So, you know, I know that I know I've heard the Thomas say, you know, no one's met an elder, right? And no one's who are they? Well, I met some people in China that were supposedly elders, and maybe not the original elder, but the currently transitioned individual, and you know, they're also looking to have this happen, right? they want to have access, and the way that I've pieced it together, and again, you know, it's all stories, right? How do I know what is the actual truth behind it? You can only believe as much as you can until there's something contrary to it, and then even then, you don't know what side is correct. But it looked to me that the Chinese royal Chinese families, which I believe there was two main ones in power, and they seem to flip, you know, every so often between the either side on who's, like, controlling the communist entity.
Right.
Something along those lines. But they were still had power in those countries, in China, but they were not the government.
Right.
So I saw that there's some of that there, but at the same time, the one in there was also a whole other side, which was the old China government side, the one that fled to Taiwan. That was the Shanghai Shek side, which was the White Dragon family, and it was his daughter that was in the power position, and is supposedly still alive. And my Chinese partner has spoken with her several times. She's 130 years old, right? This is so, you know, and claiming all of these assets. And I've seen, you know, some interesting photographs of what's inside the mountains that are, you know, if I was in Hollywood, you know, doing effects, I said this would be a hard thing to pull off.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
but you know, there's a lot of that I saw there, right? So there was something in this GCR that was real, right? And from the standpoint of the perception of the people involved. But I always had it in the back of my mind, well, who really is playing this? Is it the white hats or the black hats? Who's going to win? I know what was happening in Malta was black hats. And then when that failed, whatever came after that, you know, was this battle back and forth. And even to this stage, you know, if there is any like I know that there was in the blog that was talking on the Speak project that there was these funds released to Citibank and to Wells Fargo. It was a 380 billion.
Yeah.
And if any of that was going to try to be used for the GCR, especially whatever was put in Wells Fargo, or if they attempted to do that and are being prevented. So what's the story there?
Okay, so back in April, the end of April, maybe the beginning of May, they were having trouble getting the banks to cooperate. And at that point, they had already tried to steal. We had brought in $15 million for a project as kind of the phase one. And we brought it into UBS Bank. And the Treasury left the terminal open so that the Rothschilds could access this Park Financial Group, I think it was called, but it was Rothschild owned. And they tried to pull down because the account was in the name of Create Change, which is, my other organization. And they tried to pull down, Kim had put 500 and something billion dollars in this account just to show them that the money was there, to show the government officials so they could record it. And so what the Rothschilds did is they tried to pull down $500 billion, which I think they would have been more subtle about it. But, they tried to pull down $500 billion so they could take credit for having access to the trust. So after that, Kim decided, she was going to take the banks that technically the master trust for all of the major banks is owned by Manna, right? So all of those back ledger accounts, all of the real assets are registered there. So she owns Wells Fargo and she owns Citibank. So what she did is she declared Wells Fargo and Citibank a failed asset, and she sold it back to she sold Wells Fargo back to the United States for $1, and she sold Citibank back to Russia because of all the money that had been stolen from them via, I want to say that has something to do with Leo Wansa and also with the Clintons, obviously the Clintons. So she sold it back to those respective countries for $1. And now when she did that, the idea is to put those banks under national control, right? Obviously that hasn't quite been done yet. But when you put them under national control, the military can go in, take over the terminals, and ensure the right places are getting the money is making it to the people. So when she did that with Citibank, I know she got access to $276 billion specifically allocated for humanitarian projects in the United States. And I'm not sure what she got in other places. And I'm sure she got something similar to that in Wells Fargo. But the money is specifically, it's allocated for, the building out of the high-speed monorail. It's also set to build infrastructure and humanitarian projects around the world. So every country has an allocation that's designated for them. But in the reality of what the assets are and what they're worth, there's nothing even remotely close to the obscene numbers that were always described in the GCR. And now, don't get me wrong, very big numbers, but not, and I guess it depends on who you are and like what you've heard. I remember at one point it was just insanity the way they were talking about what you would get.
180 zeros to start with.
Mm-hmm.
So those kind of numbers, yeah. We're not talking about quads. We're talking about a billion quads or more.
Right.
That's not even a billion.
Yeah.
You get to 180 zeros. I heard that. I said, "Oh, that's very interesting. Why don't we just start with 1 million zeros and then we'll just start there?"
Yeah, I know. But it's weird with all these economists, and it's amazing that not really any of us really ever considered, because we all heard asset backed, and because it was asset backed, we thought, well, the asset's stable. Nothing's going to happen to it, and so that money will be worth what it's worth. But the reality is, if you have 100 pounds of gold and $100, each dollar is worth 1 pound of gold. But if you have 100 pounds of gold and $1 gazillion, yeah, they're useless. I mean, it would take so many just to get that little amount. And the reality is that's how an asset system works when it's asset backed. So the concept that they were always talking about never really worked. And to be honest, gold should be left in the planet. You know, if we were to actually look at the numbers and you talk to a physicist, like the way they would talk about they moved 500,000 tons of gold, things like that, it would literally shift the planet on its axis. It wouldn't even be possible. Gold is in the planet. And to be honest, after this is done, some of these things, there's people who, you know, they have paperwork to show that they own mines and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if Kim decides, like, look, you know, we'll pay you a certain amount not to mine the gold, because the best thing for the planet is for the gold to stay in the planet, you know, things like that.
Well, I always saw the planet as a living thing, a living entity, and that the gold, it goes out in these veins, right? It seems to me like it's the lymph node system of the planet. And just like oil is a natural byproduct of the planet, it's just one of the items in the body of the planet that we're, you know, siphoning off and using for whatever our purpose is, but we're feeding off of the planet in this way. So we've got, you know, all of these minerals, metals, and other things that are part of the planet. And, you know, it makes up what our planet is. If we removed all the gold, we wouldn't have the planet we have.
Absolutely.
Right? And usually, if you ever get into the gold mining side of things and actually see the people that were prospectors and that, they look for like where quartz is, right? And you get all these quartz crystals, and it seems to form like a very big like geode. It wants to form this geode shape naturally, right? And then the gold is emanating out from where this is in veins. The closer you are to the crystals, the thicker the veins. So
right.
it's an interesting phenomenon, but you know, it just shows that there's more to it than we know, and all we're doing is mining and taking it out, and then whatever we're using it for. I know when I saw those pictures of the gold with, or they said they went to Fort Knox and they were all grainy, black and white photos. I said, "What are they doing? Why?" And the gold's not there.
Come on, jeez.
Yeah.
You know, something you said before about actually seeing, you know, talking to the elders, and your contacts, touching base with the elders. You know, I have those contacts as well, and I've talked to quite a few people in that lineage and stuff, you know, to verify, you know. But to Thomas's point, one of the things that I think, you know, makes this a little more palatable and a little more believable, because the narrative that all of us had about why the GCR is real, and it is real, right? It's always been real. I mean, like I said, you know, the documents are posted. Every country in the world did sign off on that. But the problem is that, and then on top of that, you know, 136 countries were paid off in dinar and in zim and dong. And the IMF hit all of those countries up about 2 months ago, maybe 3. And they told them to get rid of that currency. And they told them, because we're going digital with everything. That's what they told them to do. And what they were really trying to do is just hide the evidence. But all these very high up government officials, to your point, very much in the know, and they knew it was going to happen. What they didn't know is the whole goal was to strip the living planet, just the way you said, strip it of its resources and take them off planet, right? That was the goal. And they would have let all of us die. And this is proven. I mean, it's just kind of out there, and I apologize, but, you know, there's the quantum artificial intelligence mapping system that Kim utilizes. And this maps human behavior, everything, right? Now, for the longest time, it only mapped a section of humanity, this little piece. And based on that little piece it saw, it looked at us as warmongering, that we were destroying the planet, And it had these false conclusions, right? Because that's how AI works. It can only analyze the data it's taking in. So when Kim took the position, she had to reprogram the AI so that it examined all of the data. And once it examined all of the data, then it could appreciate things like love and relationships, generosity, kindness. But before, it couldn't even appreciate those things. And we were on a path to be destroyed. And this AI, it actually has a frequency that you could turn into this frequency, and it would just go out through the airways, and it could turn everything on the planet to dust in a matter of seconds. I mean, that's real. And that was part of the plan too. Now, what's insanely idiotic is the Rothschilds and the Chinese elders, they all thought they were exempt from that part of the plan. They thought, well, that doesn't mean us, it's everybody else, right? Because that's how they always think. And
we'll be off on a ship, on off planet, or on another planet, or under the ground, whatever it was. The big city, underground cities, whatever it is that they were. I look at that. What was that movie, 2012, when they built these giant ocean liners, in the mountains in China? They had one for each country. Like, okay, if you had $1 billion, you could buy a ticket.
Right. Yep, that's true.
Well, I look in my pocket. I didn't quite have $1 billion in there, but
yeah. Well, the other thing is too is with all this stuff, like, it's amazing to me that people are still so bought in to the myth of the benevolent Chinese elders. Because even at the core of the all the different factions of the elders had some claim that they were the ones doing it, right? So the Indonesian elders are the ones who went and got the paperwork, right? And allegedly they're better than they're more benevolent than the Chinese elders. That's, and the Malaysian elders. That was the story.
Mm-hmm.
But think about this. Tell me if you remember this happening, because I used to have some pretty good contacts in this world. And a few years ago, you had a bunch of regular employees who were entering the codes at Wells Fargo, some facility there in Reno. And behind them, all of these Chinese assassins hired by, the Chinese elders. And if they were not able to access the system, they were killed on sight. Now, these are the benevolent Chinese elders. Now, that happened. I mean, I had people there. That happened. So, and every one of those people died. So, now think about this. So your Chinese elders, your benevolent Chinese elders, either they're completely incompetent and they are lying because they don't have access to the system, right? Or they would have done this by now. Or they're the meanest, most sadistic people on the planet who would take, potentially millions of people and lie to them or give them false information over and over again that they were going to do the RV, they were going to do the GCR over and over and over again. And it reminds me of the scripture in the Bible where it says, hope deferred maketh the heart sick. I mean, imagine what they did. They took the most, the Imagineers, the most creative minds, the healers, the naturopaths, and the inventors, people with global aspirations to change the world, took all of them and they neutralized us. They put us all on pause.
Everyone's on pause. Everyone's waiting. So 4 years, and now, of course, I wasn't waiting, right? I was moving. I was running back and forth, trying to see how to move it forward, right? But at the same time, when these things did not happen, and I've got a more unusual background than most, so I've known about, the higher end technology that was there. I've had friends in the higher end financial world, and friends in the CIA, friends in the Treasury. So I've had a different perspective about these, and even a different perspective about dealing with people in China. When you're making friends, right, and you're eating and drinking together, and they like to drink their white wine, right, and and with every meal, you just can't do business unless you're drinking. But you make friends, and you come to have an understanding of the culture. I've seen that China and stuff, they're humans, right? They have children, they care for their children, they care for their people. But whenever you build a government, right, the structure of it is a machine. Now, if it's a benevolent machine, or if it's just going to chew up the people type of machine, it's just going to do what it does, right? What it's programmed to do, right? So
Right.
the communist system doesn't value the people if their people are a resource. So I mean, beyond it being a resource, and if it's not a usable resource, it just puts it into the grinder, and it doesn't, and it just moves on. And the people that are already in it, they just look around and say, well, not me. I'm going to try and I'm going to be the round peg in the round hole. I'm just going to fit where I need to be.
Yeah, that's what Rockefeller said. I mean, he didn't want a nation of thinkers, right? He wanted a nation of workers.
Yeah.
And it's the reality. Well, and the hard part is this, to be honest. For me, it's the reality of just this crashing reality that we all kind of thought like the government had the final say. But I just we just put out this interview from Kim, like just a snippet, maybe like a minute long, and she goes through the hierarchy of how it really worked, right? Oh. And she explained how at the top there was these two brothers and this one guy, so it's Marduk and these two brothers, right? They were at the top of the hierarchy for, she says, in this for 1,000 years. Right now, we know that humans used to live to be 1,000 years old, so it's not even really a stretch, right? And then she talks about how there was, there was these covens, right? These 9 covens,
and the parents,
and then the parents, then something, the dragon masters, and then there was like the 13 dragon families, right? Which I think it depends on, when she describes it, or I've heard it described different ways. But then under that is, I mean, that's when the Rothschilds come in, right? Like the Committee of 300 type of stuff. And then the governments. So the government has been taking orders from all of this source above them forever. So even the government, all it is designed to do, every single government fell under the same solo monarch of the planet. So it doesn't matter if it was communist, socialist, democratic, republican, it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter if you don't know about it.
Right, exactly.
If you didn't hear about it, so you didn't see it on CNN and you didn't see it in the New York Times, it doesn't exist, right?
Right.
So, but these things exist. The histories around the world, if you dive in any area, you'll find a different story, right, than what you would have known. I spent a lot of time in India. I was married to an Indian woman for 18 years, and so I spent a lot of time in India in my 20s and 30s. And I got a lot of the background there, and there was the tale of great wealth from the Maharajas, right? The mountains of gold. And why were the British there?
To take away the aspect of the way they live, to be honest.
Yeah. They wanted to get the gold. They wanted they got all the different Maharajas to fight each other.
Yeah. I saw this quote from a British general about that, right? And he had traveled all over. He was like the scouting general during that time, and he went all over India. And at that time, India was dominated by kind of a yoga spirituality in all their teaching. So all of the kids were raised to access the field with their energy, and so there was prosperity all over India, and every place was prosperous, and they were happy. And the British general was like, we have nothing to offer them. It's like that movie Avatar. Like we have nothing to offer them, to take from them. So the only way so he was saying basically that they had to wage war to civilize them, right? and at the end of the day, we always think civilization. What it really is just it's slave management. They mean they want to enslave us so that we act right? And what is acting right is acting within the rules and guidelines that they have established. That's what I mean. That's what every government has been kind of set up to do on some level. And of course, we need laws, and to some extent. But I mean, you look at the United States. When the United States was originally established, every state was sovereign, so they were their own country all by themselves. And what they agreed to was, as a collective, we all agreed to support each other and do X, Y, and Z. But when it comes down to it,
for trade,
right? Yeah, right.
Right.
But like my state, we're going to run this state the way we want. And then the people were sovereign. So if the people are sovereign, when they introduced the Bill of Rights, you basically ended up giving more power to the federal government than they previously had. And the reason why they had to do it so fast, I think that was, the original Constitution is 1776, I think. And then maybe 10 years later, 12 years later, they modified it with the Bill of Rights. And when they modified it, what they did was they came in and they put all these things there. And they said, okay, look, you guys have freedom of speech. But I was sovereign. I don't have to ask your permission to speak if I'm sovereign. But now, because you said I have freedom of speech, that means you have the authority to give me freedom of speech. And then what they did is every time they gave you something, they took something. So
well, I do hear what you're saying. I have a little bit of different perspective about it because, they were inalienable rights, right? These are already there, right? You already have them. But the people were peasants, farmers, right? And so they really didn't understand that they had the right, right? So the concept of doing this was really a wake up, right? Hey, wake up and be sovereign. So I mean, it's I guess a double-edged sword in that case because that you're empowering the federal government in a way so that you can let them know. But they said it in a way that said, well, because you are sovereign, you are, a king to yourself and to your domain, that you have the right of free speech. You have the right to bear arms. You have the right to. So, but it does then create this monster that we've been dealing with.
Well, but that's the thing is okay. It's slight modifications like this that I always watch. It's unalienable rights is what it says in the Constitution, meaning these are rights given to every man by God, right? They can't be taken from us. Now, inalienable rights is how they modified it because those rights can be taken if everyone agrees to it. So it's a slight modification, and that's what they did. That's how they got away with it.
Well, thank you.
So
I didn't know that modification.
I know.
Inalienable and unalienable. Yes. Okay.
So then what they did was, so you had the people, it's like they have freedom of speech, but now what they did is they added, and except when, right, we're at war, right? They said you don't have to house and quarter soldiers, right? That was it's one of the amendments, right? I don't know which one, but it's like, that would be ridiculous, but because they were forced to house the British soldiers during the Revolutionary War, they were so excited to have that in writing. Oh, thank goodness I don't have to house soldiers. But then the next part says, unless we're at war. Well, when other time would you house soldiers except at war? I mean, you're not just going to have them at your house. So it's almost like, well, we're giving you a right, but it's not really a right. They're basically taking the right at the same time. So it's like they're giving you one thing and then taking something with the other hand. So, and I'm not against, the Bill of Rights exactly. I'm just saying,
there's more to it than we know.
Yeah.
Even the idea that we're going back and paying reparations to the King of England after the Revolutionary War was over, a dozen years, right? So why are we paying reparations? We won.
We won, right? Like, I think you guys misunderstand. We won. We're free. We don't owe you anything. Like, work it out.
But we borrowed the money from the French king, which is actually the same as the English king. They were the same person.
Right, exactly. And even then, it wasn't even that. The crown and the crown is actually the Rothschilds.
Right.
Which
And at the time,
which above the king of England, because the king was in debt too to the Rothschilds. That's the whole trick. So
right.
it's
And then
but it wasn't.
and then we heard of course, the French Revolution, and then the French, royalty had to leave and where did they go? To America.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
The Pacers, right?
Oh, that's right. Right.
And so then they end up buying everything and controlling it. So all this new information is all come out because of the QAnons, right? All digging, right? And so there's more information. I've another friend of mine that I have talks about this, and he's not a believer in the QAnon, and he's on the other side, right? He's and so I'm talking this out. It's a friendly conversation we have back and forth, but to see the positions on both sides, it's good, and it basically gives you a viewpoint of where other people are. And it's not invalid position. It's just what they see and what they're reflecting, what they're resonating with. And so reality changes as our frequencies change, and that's part of what this all is waking up people around the world so that everyone knows, hey, this is going on. Hey, the Federal Reserve has been foreclosed on, and now it's being taken up by the Treasury. And if this happened, did it occur? I mean, they're going to take action, is what the blog said, right? So if the Treasury, then takes the Federal Reserve, where do they go from there? Can they issue then I don't know even know what they're going to call them, U.S. Treasuries, or what are they going to Treasury?
So there won't be Treasury Reserve notes. There won't be those. Those are a cryptocurrency that is fraudulent. The USNs, there won't be those. That's another cryptocurrency. The U.S. dollar has always been asset-backed, the legal U.S. dollar. So all of those assets are held in the trust. So when a transfer comes in from the trust, what happens is it's an institutional level transfer, like a government transfer. So when the terminal operator opens, what he does is they'll put in, like, say, an account number, and that'll ping out to Kim, and she'll give them access, and it opens up the account. And when it opens up the account, they see Kim, or they'll show her passport. It'll show the Homeland Security clearance code, the Bank of International Settlements clearance code. Then it'll show the amount of currency in U.S. dollars in this case. She has accounts in every country's currency, but it'll show the account in U.S. dollars. And then it'll show the allocation number that it's registered in to the Department of the Treasury. Then from there, they can cross-reference that allocation number, because that connects the dollar to the asset.
Mm-hmm.
And they cross-reference it with the Department of the Treasury, and then the Department of the Treasury says, yes, that's accurate. That's legit money. So no, that's definitely clean, clear money, and because it's all there in this lockdown financial system.
But how do you move that into the hands of people through banks, which are not in cooperation?
Right. So what has happened at this point, and you gotta excuse me a little bit with this, because this stuff's a little tricky to explain. So the issue is with the banks right now, this money has been brought on ledger. Now, bringing the money on ledger, the reason why that's such a game changer is they have lied to everyone. I mean, think about it. They convinced everyone that there was going to be a GCR, and paid off massive debts, stole countries' assets with paper, right? With just money that they made, from a fake printing press, basically, and just said, hey, this is money.
Pretty beads for the land in Manhattan, for the island of Manhattan.
Jeez. So
same old story.
So at this point, though, why this is a big deal Okay, because everyone recognizes and knows that the Federal Reserve is the head central bank, and everything USD related comes out of the Federal Reserve. And every single country, every country on some level, but definitely 136 countries are pegged to the US dollar. So that money from the Federal Reserve, once it's taken over, the Federal Reserve, all of their properties are seized on, all of their terminals, everything associated with the Federal Reserve. Now, this is assuming the Department of the Treasury goes in with full military force, I'm assuming, and they're going to seize control of these terminals. Now, once this happens and we have our people at the terminal, it's kind of like now we can move money anywhere, And what I suspect, to be quite honest, is a lot of this, a lot of the management stuff, Kim could flex her muscle and take down the whole system at any time. I mean, she could collapse it and, but it would hurt people.
Yeah.
And she's bound, by natural law. And so she won't do that. And that's the difference, because the good guys, the good guys have to find a way to overcome impossible odds and not hurt anybody. But like the bad guys, throw a baby, up in a bazooka just to make a point, right? So they haven't been limited by playing fair in any way. They haven't honored any deals. Several times Kim has made deals with them and made arrangements. And the reason why she did that is because she's so confident in humanity that she's like, she would rather give, split the money up and give half to them and half to people. And she's confident that people will do amazing things with it. While, all they know how to do really, to be honest, is steal money. And she shut all that down. So she's blocked every, well, I can't say every route because you never know, but the entire SWIFT system, the transfer system, she described it like Swiss cheese. So you would send something through and just pieces would be flying off everywhere, and if they wanted it, they would just reach in and grab it back out. They had a system set up in the 70s called the Poseidon system. And that was nothing but a siphoning system. What they always call the quantum Hercules system. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as a quantum Hercules system. There is a Hercules hacking system that was designed by a hacker in Hong Kong. And every time you heard there was going to be an RV, this team of hackers, or whoever it is, would do their very best to try to break through the firewalls to pull money down from the trust out of the HSBC location in Hong Kong. And that's what they did every single time. And every single time, I mean, I literally would call when they were hacking the trust. And I mean, I notified the military a couple times when they were trying to hack the trust from the United Nations. Because there's the black servers at the United Nations. But it's a very specific type of computer. But here's the thing that's just idiotic to me. And here's how you know that we're operating underneath slave laws versus laws that apply to everyone. Because I know this for a fact that at the United Nations, there's a black server, and that connects to this very famous briefcase laptop that they had for a long, long time. And back then, whenever they had to start a war, or they wanted someone killed, or they wanted to do something terrible, they would go type in, what they were going to do into this laptop, and they would enter it, and that would be the asset redemption. And they would put that in there, and then it would spit out a dollar amount, like, and that'll cost this much money. But then what they did is they recorded all of their evil deeds. So everything you can imagine, every piece of proof, every piece of evidence against these people has been brought to light to every intelligence agency in the world. And this has been going on. Kim has done massive intelligence drops. I mean, on a scale that you can't even conceive, exposing things that are diabolical, how they stole money from every country. And even with that, they've still maintained to hold us off from bringing money into the people. That's how low on the totem pole we are to them, because they consider us like dogs. To them, it's like, giving your dog a diamond ring. Like, you just wouldn't do that, right? So they don't, that's how little they think of us.
Well, that's why when you said that the old quantum system had such a narrow view of humanity, right, was because they had only them to react against, right? You know, that perception, you know, and those, you know, are the things that they were doing and how they acted, right? And they have a very narrow view. So, and they're not the creative ones. Right?
That's right.
Right? It's the
reason why
everything.
The reason why they were made the head slaves is because they followed orders better than anyone else, and they would do anything.
Right.
I mean, that's the reality of what they, you know.
Yeah, our creative spark is what gives us, you know, this unique ability to create anything. You know,
that's right.
You can look at like say Tesla and what came from him. Right. This is one man. One man can make a difference. One man can go out and do anything. You just focus on it, and it will come about, right? But, you know, and that's why we have to all act and actually, you know, I admire the things that you've been saying recently also about this is the time to act, right? This is this has never happened before in all of history, where we have the chance to now move out of this debt slavery system and establish our own world. And,
that's right.
And that's what we need to do. We need to be focused on that, and then it happens, right? And
well, you know what? Let me throw this at you because this might appeal to, you know, people down there. So take almost any creation story from any spiritual text, right? It'll come back to something about this, right? So you take Adam and Eve, for example. Now, the way it's stated is that Adam breathed in the breath of life, right? And that Adam was created from the dust of the earth, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't say that God blew the breath of life into him, so he breathed, right? So he just took a breath. So in other words, and it was out of the dust, not the mud. So just out of nothing, he was spirit, and he materialized in a fleshly body as Adam, right? Then the woman is created from the rib in one translation. In another translation, she's created from the womb. That's where you get woman, right? Mm-hmm. So that's symbolic of the heart, right, or love. And also, when we make instinctual decisions, we say trust your gut, right? So you take these two principles of this aspect, but what she didn't have was any part of Adam's head, right? Because Adam represented knowledge. So she didn't know that she was made from the same substance as Adam was, right? She didn't know that. But here's the beauty of it. When Adam and Eve come together, it says Adam knew Eve. And the result was offspring, right? Now, this is the principle. Adam is symbolic of knowledge, or our thoughts, our ideas, our imagination. And Eve is symbolic of love, of the heart, of that. And when those two things are in agreement, in other words, when those two become one flesh, what happens is creation, right? They created offspring that wasn't there previously. Now, that's the same principle that you can see run through when the Messiah comes around. He says, what is done in heaven is done on earth. All of that is talking about, you know, as above, so below. It's the same principle. So our focused intention on it isn't exactly enough. There has to be a level where we actually allow ourselves to feel the complete emotional reality of that already being done. You know, that, and I think that to me, I really feel like right now, there's never been a time where the pathways to the spiritual reality, the energetic, you know, field, whatever, have ever been so open, at least not our lifetime, you know. And in this time, we really have access to those things where we can instantaneously manifest things. And it only takes just, you know, the power of just you and me agreeing on it, right? That's how powerful it is. People are. And that's always been the biggest fear, is that, you know, like magic is the combination of will and imagination, right? And you can just will something into existence. Now, the collective consciousness has been one of fear and doubt and lack. Everyone's talking about the earth is overpopulated. I dare somebody to drive from New York to California and tell me the earth is overpopulated. You could drive from New York to California and never see a person, you know? So
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, I've always said that we're not overpopulated; we're underpopulated. It's just when you're in the cities where they're corralling the herd, you know,
Right.
and not having enough living conditions, or you're short of money. You get into that space of thinking because that's what you're being presented with, right? And it's the fear of not having enough and everything that comes in. Well, we got to change it. We got to not do it this way. You know, I remember when I was real young, I don't know, 5 years old, whatever. I remember that they were talking about an ice age, right?
Yeah. Right.
And of course, I was at the time 5 years old in Pennsylvania, and it's snowing. I'm a young kid thinking, oh wow, we're gonna be living on great glaciers soon. That should be fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that was fun. That sounds terrible.
Well, I'm a young kid, so I'm used to making, ice forts and, snowball fights.
Yeah,
And, so, okay,
so great. Yeah.
this is going to be the world but no, never happened, right? And then it was all about the ozone hole. So when I was in high school, right, the ozone hole, we're going to get like fried from the sun because our ozone's going to disappear and the atmosphere will disappear. And I said, oh, okay, well, you know, I started following that, right? Looking at the satellite data, always said, oh, well, it looks like it's not happening, but they're still going on about it, right? And really, we used to have a lot more oxygen on the planet, right? And if we had more CO2, we'd have more oxygen. we want more CO2. Everyone should drive an SUV. I mean, because we have control of this, right? We can do it. We should pass a law that everyone has to drive a diesel SUV.
Right.
Increase the CO2 so we can live with more oxygen.
Well, what's interesting now too. There's a big movement in the scientific community now. There's over 31,000 scientists who have come out publicly now, and they're standing together. And I just thought, wow, that is so powerful to me. Why isn't the news talking about it? I mean, maybe they are there. I don't know.
They're not.
In the United States, we always thought we were the hub of information, but now, I don't know.
There was a here in the Philippines. This was maybe already 10 years ago. They were having the Green Summit, right, around the environmental summit, and Al Gore was coming here. A friend of mine's uncle was the head of the EPA here in the Philippines, and he came over for dinner. And I asked him, so, well, what about ClimateGate? I said, well, what's that? I said, well, all the lies that they've told because they gathered all the material from around the world, all the data, and brought it to one location and stored it in Washington, D.C. and said, okay, here's all our climate data. We're going to protect it. Of course, they ended up putting it in digital form, and then we don't need this anymore, and they burnt it. And they started changing all this information and putting it out there. But then it didn't match the act because, the people that created the data originally, they said, well, that's not our data. We aren't able to say that. Well, you're supposed to send us the original, all of your information. Why do you keep any of it?
Right. Right.
So he wasn't even aware of this. And I said, well, the ozone hole has shrunk 40% and split into two small holes. It looks like we're doing better. But maybe it's just we have a global weather pattern. A galactic weather pattern that we're in. And, because, I don't know how us driving SUVs causes the temperature to fall on or rise on Pluto.
Right.
How does that work? Can you explain? So, it's not here. The mainstream media, the deep state bubble of information that they've created, tells a story that they want so that they can milk us of more of our life, and they call it taxes. Whether it's farting cows or you breathing, they want to charge you for it.
Yeah. Well, it's bigger than that too. Like I'm thinking about this all the time about, okay, you have this transition that's going to take place. You know, and this goes back to, you know, Willie Lynch, How to Make a Slave, right? He allegedly, this slave owner got up on the banks of the Mississippi in 1712, and he gets up on the banks of the Mississippi and he says, as I rode into town today, I could smell the rotting carcass of one of your slaves hanging from a tree, because you're still of the belief that you need to use brute force to manage their behavior. And then he said, but I will give you a way to control them for the next 300 years, so much so that they will make themselves slaves for the next 300 years. And he said, divide them, take the children from the mothers, divide the husbands from the wives, divide them against their color, divide them their skin color, divide them against their eye color, divide them against their intelligence, their strength, their size, their shape. Divide them at every chance you get and train everyone in your household to do the same, until the only one they trust is you. Now that's what they do. Now you can, and this is how it would go down, right? Because you'd go out to the slave plantation and you'd have a slave's house in the middle of a cotton field. And then there'd be another cotton field, and there'd be a slave's house in the middle of that cotton field, right? What we would call that today is a neighborhood, right? But it's basically, that's how it was set up. So the slave owner would come out and he would talk to the wife, and he'd say, you know, you are really open-minded. I can't believe that it's okay for you that your husband is such good friends with the neighbor's wife. And that never happened. Now that man comes home and his wife goes in on him. He has no idea why. Now they're fighting, they're divided. And then he ends up beating his wife, right? Because he's been working for 15 hours, does something awful, regrets it. Then the slave owner comes in and says, I have to take your wife out of here and let her repair it. Now he takes her in the house and starts raping her. Now she's having his babies. I mean, that's the divide, right? But she's so genuine, kind, right? And that's the kind of thing that they have done to every one of us on every aspect of our life. And if we can wrap our mind around that, you know, concept, we can see that in every, they openly call it social engineering, right? It's like for sales, social engineering, you're changing somebody's behavior, but it's cultural guidance. And what they're doing is they're shaping what our cultures become. They've created, fabricated religion. I've talked to people in the cabal, bloodline family, who is literally, their family is known for creating certain religions. And they all know it, because the religions are just designed to divide us, right? You know, there's this big controversy because someone was talking about how the God of the Muslims and the God of the Christians is the same, and they were up in arms about it. But I'm like, you're so ignorant. They are the same. If you trace back the scripture, the Muslims go back to Isaac and Ishmael.
You can. Well, you just talk. It says so in the Quran that they're the same God. I mean, it just says so. And the Quran came 800 years after the Bible. So, you know, and they're reflecting what's in the Bible, and they're saying that, you know, it's just this division that they need to do is because people are not educating themselves about what's in the Quran or what's in the Bible. They won't read it. They only listen to what they're being told.
And that's a generational Catholic thing, because it goes back to when the mass used to be in Latin, right? And the priest would have his back to the audience, right, and speak in Latin, and no one ever knew what was going on in church. They just knew they had to go, you know. And like, if they didn't, like, you know, this is the thing people don't even understand. You know, my dad's a missionary, right? He's a Christian missionary. He's always on trips, and he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. But the challenge is that I'm like, you know, the idea of being a missionary comes from when the Catholics went into the Mongols, right? And they destroyed them, right? And they decided that, you know what, we know what the problem is with Kublai Khan. You know, he lets every religion exist here, right?
Give me a moment here. I got to go get the delivery. Okay. I ordered the Energizer lithium batteries that last a long time, because the batteries here in the Philippines for like put in my keyboard, remote access, lasts a week.
Wow.
Yeah, they keep replacing the batteries. I say, This is crazy. It should last at least 6 months or longer, a year.
Yeah. How much? Yeah, no kidding.
That's probably Philippines is I think it was around the third poorest country on the planet.
Yeah.
By the statistics, but of course, how much gold is sitting here, whatever else is sitting here.
There's supposed to be like an emerald mountain in the Philippines. Isn't there like famous for an emerald mountain there, or it's all filled with emeralds?
There's so much that's here. It's I've seen some amazing things. I've seen a lot of fake stuff, but that's part of the poverty. These are very good people that end up doing a lot of stupid and fraudulent things out of poverty. Even my wife's uncle, he found gold bars, legitimately found gold bars in his backyard, right? Digging, whatever, found some gold bars. So instead of becoming rich, right? Literally, if you find one gold bar, you're rich. But he had a few. So he decided the best thing to do would be to melt them down and mix them with copper or brass, and then put them, then sell them, because then he has twice as much.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
So, stupid, right? You got free and clear. You're going to be rich. Your family is going to be rich here in the Philippines forever now. But then you do that, and then of course, then he's busted, and he actually ends up going to jail.
Right.
So, and now he's a black sheep of the family. But but it's everywhere here that because people act out of fear of not having enough.
Yeah.
Not having food, not having, and it's, there's food that grows everywhere here, but if you're feeding off of the forest, right, that takes a lot of effort. Your day is foraging, right, and cooking and all this, and then you're not doing the other things that you should be able to get paid for, but since there's no liquidity here in the Philippines, it's
anywhere,
all the oligarch families. They're the ones that hold all of the wealth, and it only drips out. Even one of the I'm CFO of a construction company. It's a highly rated, built a 30-story building, finished it a year ago. The last payment is coming from one of the largest developers here in the Philippines. It was built for them, right? But the last payment they didn't pay. That's where all the profit is for the company, is in that last payment, right?
Yeah.
And they just like drip it out in such small amounts, and it could take, at this rate, 5 years to get paid off. And of course, the building is in use, right? There's a whole mall there. Living things in there, residences are part of it in the mall. But this whole thinking, this whole setup of just slowly like not paying out what's due, right? You're using someone else's money, right? It doesn't belong to you anymore. You need to pay them so that they can move on and do their next job. So that just strings up the other company and so. But this is systemic, and in the last 4 years, I've been to Mozambique, China, India, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Laos. Literally the poorest places around, that if you put them on, if they're on the list, these are where I went. Except China's not really poor, neither is India in the poorest category anymore. But there's so many good people everywhere. Their hearts are good, but there's no money, right? Where is the liquidity for people to actually go out and do things if they want to take action themselves, right? They're held down by the poverty. They can't lift themselves out of it. And this is a challenge. I think it's, part, I only look back and it's like I didn't make an itinerary. So let me go visit the poorest places on the planet, right? I believe it's part of my path is to go and see what's there, right? And so I get to experience that and I have an understanding of what that poverty is bringing to the planet, right? Where all these people could go out and do things that to make their local environment better for everyone there. And we're going to have a big challenge to change the thinking of these people, scarcity thinking into abundance thinking. And this is one of, I think, one of the biggest challenges is this education of people into thinking differently. All right.
Well, it starts, like Kim and I have talked about this a couple times, and one of the things is that, and I've said this for the longest time, and I'm very adamant about the way we do this, and unless Kim changes it, which I don't think she will, because she had a similar idea, is you have these people that have been planning and designing really innovative, intelligent ways to change the world, right? And have all these amazing projects and inventions. I'm sure you've seen all types of things, right? And so have I. And, sometimes it's very simple projects. Sometimes it's very elaborate. Some people want to do things in every country in the world. But the first thing that I tell everybody is your first project is you. Go, take what you need and like factor it into your project as part of your salary, right? And figure out what you need and go get those things. Go get a place to live. Make sure your rent's paid off for the next 2 years, or buy you've got to buy a house, or go get some new clothes and a shave and a haircut, and like take care of it. The loan shark that's following you because you made a bad deal somewhere, right? Because that is what happens. Because people
be debt free.
Right. People don't become poor because they made bad decisions. They make bad decisions because they're poor. That's been proven.
Yeah, the lottery winners end up with nothing after a year, right? Because they don't know what to do with the money. They only know that it goes out as fast as it comes in.
but that's their reality. I mean, everything is constantly shaken up against them, right? People get a contract and there's all these hidden fees and different things, and most people don't even know what they say. Here in the U.S., it's one of the things they're talking about is the IRS, right? Somebody shows up to audit you from the IRS, and the first thing somebody does is like they just don't want any problems, right? So they show a badge, and on the badge it says admin, which means they have no power, right? And they go in and they say, well, according to our records, you owe us $10,000. And that person's so happy that they don't owe $50,000, they pay it. They don't even question it. And that's the scam that they're running all the time. They trick us with this false authority they have, and they don't have that authority over us. And the IRS isn't even a government organization. Neither is the Federal Reserve. These are all things that people need to start. We need to bring these topics to the mainstream. I'm really pressing on this because people want to know what they can do today. We need to make up our mind, because this is how we got in the situation, right? There was a desperate situation, and there was a tragedy with all humanity, right? 16,000 years ago. And people were given the option, and basically what it came down to was, look, we'll give you what you need and we'll rebuild the world for you, right? But we want to take control of it. And they put the whole world under martial law. And everybody agreed to it because in that moment, they were desperate, right? It's where the whole idea behind, you traded your inheritance for a morsel of bread. That's what we did. And those would be like 499-year agreements. And they're called infinity contracts. And that repeated over and over again. So by the time the next infinity contract came up, the people that were there, they didn't even know what it was like to be free, to even want it anymore. They didn't even know. So you just repeated that over and over and over again. So now we're in a similar situation this time. Those infinity contracts have all expired. So now humanity has another choice. Now, the problem is we've been bribed by the GCR, right? You're going to be rich and have unlimited wealth. Why doesn't anyone ever ask, if there's unlimited wealth for every single person on the planet, who is going to make stuff for you to go buy it? Nobody needs your money if everybody's filthy rich. Because think about it, there's so much money they talk about with the RV and the GCR that you put that money out, nobody's going to work.
Yeah, well, I hear what you're saying. I've wrestled with this same thing for these last 4 or 5 years, and it's like, what do you do when everyone has enough, right? Do they want to work? And the thing is I think that there's going to be a very big boom in the vacation industry, and there will be people that are doing it, but we will end up with the same amount of people as a percentage working as before, because people want to do things. They get bored, and of course, the things that are manual labor, I can see a big rise in the robot industry. Yeah.
Well, okay. So everything you're talking about, right? That's all part of the depopulation agenda, right? That's the reason why they don't need people and why we're expendable is because they can just have robots do it. Why do they need people? They don't need slaves. The robots will be their slaves. And that's why they have the nanites, which are, microscopic.
But if they're not in charge anymore, and we are in charge, and we can still have, there's many people that as a percentage of the population doing art, or a higher percentage of people doing art and music, and then the diversity that comes from that. There's a lot more that we can experience, that we don't even know what it will look like. But we just need to go out and start doing it. And yes, there is going to be some transitional hurdles. And I would not say it's a good idea to give every person on the planet, $1 million today. But, give them, $100 today and $150, next week, and $200 the following week, and, following another $500. This will have the economy start booming at the bottom, right? And start moving.
At the end of the day, the way the trust works, right? So there has to be a production line, right? There has to be a supply and a demand, right? Mm-hmm. There has to be a demand, or there'll be no more money brought in. Mm-hmm. So that's why everything is project-based. Right. So when there's a project, the project is going to utilize materials. It's going to provide jobs. It's going to do all these things. Right. So that means there's a demand for more money because we have more workers to pay, and we have to buy new things. We have to break new ground. So that's how it actually works. And then that, for every dollar that's brought in from grant funding, it generates $15. Right. Mm-hmm. So all that works. And as far as everyone, getting this just massive, everything's okay. It really does take, there's an intrinsic value that lacks. And this was always my biggest problem with, this idea that, okay, the galactic's going to come in and this is going to happen and we're going to heal and everybody's going to be able to sit around and, get fat on a yacht and, drink champagne. The problem is that innately who we are as people is creators. That is who we are. There is nothing more natural than to love our children, right? To love each other and to create. You watch a child. If you never introduce a television to a child, that kid will sit there and play with gears and bolts, nuts. They'll start building things by the time they're 2. They'll naturally do that because that's who we are. We want to see what we can do. Alfie Kahn has this book called Punished by Rewards, right? So in the book, he's talking about how what happens is intrinsically we want to learn. Intrinsically, we want to grow. Intrinsically, we want to see what are our limitations. What can I do? Right? That's who we are. But what they've done is they've punished us for rewards, right? You get a silver star, you get a an A or a B or C, right? You get an attaboy, and everyone. And nowadays, they don't give out awards anymore for being exceptional. Now everybody gets an award. Everybody's special, which means nobody is special, right?
Right.
So, but that system of the reward system that we use, right? That's what money is too. Oh, here's money for this. But at the end of the day, there's an intrinsic value to developing and learning and making something.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been so focused, and it breaks my heart. My son said, he goes, well, isn't the point to make money? And I was like, no, it's not the point. That's the problem. It's about making a difference. Money just comes because you're doing something great. And
yeah, it shouldn't be the goal. It should just be the result.
Yeah, exactly. And I love this the other day, this moment in the State of the Union address when Trump was speaking. He said, I'm asking you to choose greatness. I wanted to cheer, because they have exalted mediocrity, right?
Yeah.
Mediocre
Lowest common denominator.
They repeat the same boring, useless ideas that have never worked, right? I mean, even think about this. If you're talking about the banking industry and you were like, well, you and I want to start a bank. They said, well, you guys don't have the experience. Well, let's look at what experience has done for the banking industry currently. Every single bank is insolvent. They have funded drugs, the illegal sale of weapons. They've funded human trafficking. All of those guys can get accounts whenever they want. The Deutsche Bank just said that 90% of their transfers were money laundering, fake transfer. How did 90% of the transfers get by you? Right? Like, they didn't get by you. You didn't care. So,
well, they were profiting from it. So that's what they do. It's like it's not just them. It's every bank. Every
right.
major bank is doing the same thing, and the governments. They're all doing the same thing. They're all participating in this. So when we're looking at changing this is why what Trump is doing. It's not it's not just Trump, but Trump and the U.S. military, the white hat military, are changing the world. Right? It's not just about America. It's about routing the cabal from everywhere, and to free us. And I really believe that is the overall goal. And so it is time to really do something and let people know and educate people. I'll take this moment to say that, please, everybody, share this video. Take the few seconds to put it on your Facebook. Give a good like it and make a positive comment. No negative comments, not necessary. Keep your negative comments to yourself. No one needs to know. But just share this and pass it on. Put it on Twitter. Do everything you can, and then do your own video. just 5 minutes of telling people, hey, this is what way you see it. This is what you heard. This is what it is. And just add to the voice and keep it going, because we are going to be experiencing more censorship. I've seen it repeatedly. Yeah. So anyways, just a little side message here. We need to keep this kind of information going.
I appreciate that. Because I'll tell you right now, I am very, very focused on mainstreaming things that matter. We need to get away from the tiny little things that we don't agree on. I'll even say this. Look, I had a lot of very, very high connections, white hat connections for a long time. And about 3 months after I started talking to Kim, they were instructed, because they also operate as the security and the mercenaries that protect the Chinese elders. And they were instructed by Chinese elders to stop talking to me. So I know the guys. I know they are. But I also know it's on the wrong side. And the reason why, at least some of them are. And part of the reason why is because the leaders at the top of the order, or on top of the white hats, they have received garagefuls of dinar. And they've been told that they're going to be the military control, the gods of this world. And so a lot of those guys had to be dealt with. And I'm not sure where that's at, because that's the reality. I saw the email from the Rothschilds written to Kim. And they said to Kim, and this is stupid on their part, she offered them 50% of everything. And they responded, "We have no need to negotiate with you, slave." That was their response. Now, she is the sole monarch on the planet. Now, they worshipped people that were 13 levels below her. But they're so stupid that they think that they had some power. They said, we are, and they were like, we are, alien, we are galactic, so we are therefore gods, and we will destroy you with the power of our minds. And then they said, what you don't realize is the military is our slave. That's what they said. Now, they saw the military as their slaves.
Yeah. And for the most part, they are correct, right? Because they manipulated things, and they have all their levers of power. They pull this one, pull that one, and they got the military to go there. They got it to go there. So hey, it was working. But now that but these individuals within these armies that have white hats know what's going on, and they don't like where things are going, and they've been trying to say, well, how do we move this into a different direction? And
with that, I mean, because like I told you, I mean, I'm a fan of military training. I'm a fan of the service they provide as a rule. But I know when I was desperately trying to wake some of my guys up, they were given orders not to talk to me, and they had to follow the orders, and that's a problem, right? So what they don't realize, I don't think, is, a lot of these guys are, white hats are the oath keepers, right? They're the ones who said, look, we're not going to fire on our own citizens. We're not going to take action. I'm always trying to remind them of that oath, because right now, they tried to kill the president a dozen times.
Yeah.
The ball. And in that,
well, we had one of the chefs in the White House just passed away from some food poisoning.
Are you kidding?
No, like last week. Yeah. So now, of course, this is just a rumor, So is it really occur? But there's supposedly 2 taste testers, one in the kitchen, and then Trump has his own, after that, but didn't make it out of the kitchen.
That job sucks. like who wants that job?
Yeah.
Like, I was in the cabinet for a little while, and then it's too bad.
And then you had so several attempts ongoing. His life is in danger, but he's protected, and I don't think at this point there's anything that's going to stop this moving forward. And we don't know exactly what the next step is. Is this GCR right now, meaning what's happening with Kim? Is it? Well, that's a good question. Do you know what's the next step? What are we looking for to free up money into the world? Are we going to see any of this coming from the trust into the hands of the people waiting in the RV?
The people waiting in the RV, I would not tell them to get rid of their currency. I would say they should hang on to it. There could very well be a project. It would be a project, like I said, where funds would be provided, not really for the currency, because we don't need the currency. Kim doesn't want it. As far as she's concerned, it's useless, right? Yeah. It's not registered in the system as an asset. It doesn't have any value. Essentially, they've used it for oil credits and things like that. It has no value to the actual system, because oil is just waste for in the greater galactic community. So, but we say keep it because there is some effort to compensate people, but I have no idea what that'll look like. I don't know what's reasonable. I can tell you what I think or what I hope happens, but with that, specifically with the currency, I don't know. What I know is it's not going to happen. That I know. What I know is you're never going to have the entire world instantaneously overnight, the whole system flip, and currency goes up to 1. It goes from being worth a penny to $100. That's never ever going to happen. There is a way to build in value over time. So the currencies will revalue and they'll be common, right? That will happen. It will never happen overnight. Never.
Yeah,
So,
I can see that. Yeah, yeah. I would I would think it's I'd reverse it on. I think I told you this before. Start with start with the lower amounts, so people have those handfuls of dinars in, and say, okay, this is what you'll get for it, right? And work it the other way. So that way the smaller amounts make it out there into the world and it starts circulating, and the newer money starts circulating, whether it's U.S. Treasury bills or U.S. dollars.
What I do know is that I have my project is approved with Create Change, and I have worked with Kim to put people in place to establish offices for the purposes of distributing funds for projects. And those people I have set up all over the world. And assuming that we do that or some version of that, money will be able to move very rapidly. And this is it's not like what we are traditionally used to with grants. Normally the way grants are structured is that they're made so impossible to get that by the time, you have to be so exact and so specific that no one can get the grants. So like every year in the United States, I think there's about $600 billion in unrewarded grants. But if that money just went out, it would literally, you'd multiply that by 15 times, because every dollar in grant money creates another $15. So you'd literally be able to erase the debt, the alleged debt, which has already been forgiven, to be honest. But you'd be able to erase these debts in no time. But they don't do that because that's not what they want. See, when people just look at what they're doing versus what they're saying, you can see that their actions don't match up with what they want. It doesn't make sense. Like, here in the U.S., the Democrats are saying, we want border security, but we refuse to have a wall. Well, your words don't match what you're doing. It doesn't make sense. Right? There must be more to it. Is my point, right? This is not really about the wall, right? It's a totally different kind of wall. It's a protection in the financial system, to protect us from the energy vampires and of the dragon families, and because they don't care. They don't care about us at all. They don't respect us like that. And their biggest fear is for us to wake up and realize, oh my gosh, we're creators. We can make anything.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Dan, I need your help with this, and whoever sees this, like, we need to get people to really just put aside all the things that we think are so important in a moment when we're, writing something awful on Twitter, or we're saying something awful and and ruining a friendship over because they don't like Trump and I do, and something like that. Put all that stuff aside. Put aside style, part of the country, religion. Focus on what is most essential that we do agree on. Because you and I can agree, we don't live in the same places. I mean, what you need down there in the Philippines, what we need here in New York are totally different. But we can both prove with absolute science, absolute certainty, the water has fluoride in it. Extensive studies have been done. It is retarded at this point for anyone to have anything with fluoride in it. It's on your toothpaste that it's poison. Yeah. Why would we put fluoride? Why would we put poison in our drinking water?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Why would we put?
Yeah, everyone can agree, and we should stop that. And I think what was the amendment that they had already put? You can't put cancer-causing things.
That's right.
Was it I forgot the name.
The Delaney clause.
So, why not enforce that? I mean, that would be something that'd be very easy for Trump to basically say, hey, we've got this on the books here. Enforce this.
Wait, enforce the laws?
And no, like a slow rollout immediately. It doesn't matter if you've got every store in the nation, in the world, that has toothpaste with fluoride in it, it's all junk, right? You know,
Right.
it's okay. Someone will fill the order with something else. And those companies that made money all this time, oh, well, cry, cry, cry. I'll play a very small violin for you. You know, it doesn't matter. You get to lose that inventory in your whole factory until you stop putting fluoride in stuff or replacement other things, other bad stuff. Don't put more different poisons in it. That's not needed. You know, since I was 20, 21, 22, something like that, I was using a toothpaste I got from India called meswak. It's a bark from a tree. Used it. Until that, I had always gingivitis. Every dentist told me, you have gingivitis. You brush your teeth? Yes, I brush my teeth. You know, so it's like, okay, I always had this. So as soon as I switched, my gums stopped bleeding because I wasn't using fluoride.
Right.
And so I stopped way back then, you know, and then the toothpaste that I was using for all this time, suddenly I noticed my gums are bleeding. It still had meswak, but now they put in aspartame.
It's like,
so I had to switch again.
Agenda in the world. It's like after a while, it's like you're not even trying to hide that you're trying to kill me. Everything you do is designed to shorten my life, dumb me down, make me fat and stupid.
Well, the fluoride prematurely ages you beyond that, and the reason is that chemically it is similar to iodine, and your body, when your DNA is programmed to create new cells when there's an old cell that dies. So it needs the certain building blocks. It needs iodine. The most common building block for our body is iodine. And so now they don't even iodize salt anymore, right? It used to be a nutritional supplement, but now they don't even put iodine anymore. Why? Because they want the fluoride to be used. And then your cells create a defective cell. So what does it do? It doesn't have a full lifespan. It just self-destructs. So that actually causes you to create a new cell. So what you're doing is you have a limited number of cells to be replaced, right? That's your lifespan, your telomeres, right? So when you don't have any more of this cell to be created, you're already old. You can't repair yourself anymore, and then you're dead. So it prematurely ages you. That's what fluoride does. So it's the worst thing on the planet.
Oh my God. That's what I mean. So, you know, and we could have a similar discussion, right? Different elements, different poisons. We could go through, I mean, oh my goodness. I was contacted by a gentleman the other day, and he broke down to me in a way I've never heard before. He broke down and explained what's going on with the chemtrails and what they're doing. I couldn't even believe it was that bad. Because how do you escape breathing, right? You can't. You know, what do you do? So
you move to the Philippines.
Right. So it's like, so at some point we've got to start really breaking away from fluoride, because I think that's a big part of it. Is that what happens is everybody is waiting for someone else to do something, right? I mean, and I talk to people all the time like, well, when the money comes in, no, you don't have time to wait for the money to come in, because who knows when, like, money could come in today, which actually we hope, right? It does. And things are moving that way, but you don't have time to wait for that. We need to stand together and fight against these things that matter. Because while a bunch of people are marching on Washington, D.C. to make sure that gay marriage is legal in the United States, who freaking cares? Why does that matter to anyone? Here's what we need to worry about. Every drop of water that is coming in, even if you don't drink the tap water, it is still permeating through your skin and poisoning you. Your food is infected with GMOs. You can't escape it. No matter what you do, you can eat all organic and you'll still get it. Because even when organic food comes into the country, the first thing they do is spray it.
Yeah.
And then
they radiate it.
Food, water, air, each other. That's what matters. That's what matters, right? That is what people need to focus on. We come together on those issues. We are the most powerful force in the universe. If people could just realize we could stand on that platform together, and you don't need a dime. You don't need any more money. All you just come together. That's why I set up That's why I set up the Guardian of Camelot. This earth is Camelot. Camelot was just an idyllic utopia. And that's what this planet should be. This planet should be, and it can be that. It can be. We don't have to have the world the way it is. But we are the caretakers of this planet. That's our job. But we haven't had it. So that's why I set up the Guardian of Camelot, because we're the guardians of Camelot. We have to stand together. And if people would just stand together and just remember that the power they have, and just remember what they're capable of again, wake up. People start, 60 years old, they start feeling like they've already cashed it in, their life's been lived. Are you kidding me? If people knew they hadn't even lived, a 10th of their life at 60, and realized you've been robbed of 90% of your life, that should provoke an emotional response that says no more. And I don't want people to stay mad, right? Because that's not healthy for anything either. But we do have to provoke that part of us that realizes what you currently have can be much, much better. You don't have to wait. Because if enough people come together, if enough people just stand up for the right thing at the same time, and we stop, who cares about, think about how the way that the Democrats and Republicans are divided. Isn't it more logical that I don't agree with everything the Republicans say, and I don't agree with everything the Democrats say? Isn't that the whole idea of being free, having free will? But that's not how they structure it. Like, you have to be one or the other. And then you have to have your clique, and you have to agree with all the hateful things they say. Now you're united on, we both hate these people, right? But that's not
united on hate, not on love. Yes. So that's the focus is always about hate, fear, hate, fear.
Right.
I hate fear.
Right. So I'm like, okay, look, we can put all that aside. I don't care if you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Hindu, atheist, garbage man, priest. I don't care. At the end of the day, can we all just stand up for fresh water? Can we all just agree? Stop poisoning our water, right? And let's get if we're gonna protest somewhere, let's go protest at the reserve where they're putting this stuff in our water. And let's stand up together. It won't cost anybody any money. We'll all protest right there where they're putting fluoride in the water. And let's make sure that we talk about that. Let's make sure the media tells the truth. There's got to be a way to get these people to realize, they're poisoning you too. All the media, politicians are poisoning you. Soldiers who are still fighting and protecting these people. I'm not say all of them. They're poisoning your kids. They're poisoning your wife right now. Right now they're doing that. That's the thing that drives me crazy is we're all just kind of sitting back. Well, somebody else will take care of it. If I had the money, I would do it. You might not ever get the money if you don't stand up and do something now. Now is the time to be active.
It's a chicken and the egg, right? Whenever this happens, then we'll do that. No, you can't wait. Well, just like the waiting for the GCR, don't wait. Having the time to stand up and do even a video or share a video, like it, comment. Those are simple things, but do your own video. It doesn't take too much. You just need a phone. If you got a Gmail account, that means you have a YouTube channel by default. You can just do it, and just, even if your friends are the only ones that see it, okay, get one other person to see what you've done, and then you can actually start making a push. And if everybody's doing it, it'll mess with their algorithms for censorship.
Look, a friend of mine who was in the CIA who died recently, he told me this. He said 80,000 people. 80,000 people is what it takes where they can't ignore you anymore, right? He says, so you got to pull 80,000 people together. Now, I know for a fact that they'll bury certain things, right? Like, if they find out I'm on you shouldn't put my name on your video. Don't put my name on your video, because if they find out I'm on it, they'll bury it, right? And I know that for a fact and not because I'm important either, but I refuse to live another second of my life being afraid of their nonsense. And because of that, I'm telling the truth. I'm giving you.
This is why the way to get around that censorship, that shadow banning, is for people to literally copy the link and paste it into their own Facebook and do it that way. Yeah. So that's why I kind of make an effort to push us. I mean, I've experienced this on my videos, from when I first went to Swiss Indo, right? And I had that video that was going viral, 4,000 views an hour, and I was like high-fiving it, and yeah, right? And then
they launched, I remember that, yeah.
It dropped to 0, right? It was like, oh, and went down to 256 views an hour. How does that happen? Someone flipped the switch, right? And then I've known that every time it gets up to about 100,000, they reset it. I don't watch it every day, but I check every 6 or 8 months. I'll go back and take a look, and they say, oh, the number was higher before. Why is it back down? Why is it back down? So I don't know what happened there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I know they do it, and I've seen my subscribers drop. I think the last week we had on our last video, which was a week ago, 7,700 views. That's okay. I don't think it's not catching any of the shadow banning algorithms, right? So. But I've had other videos that go 50,000 or 80,000 views on the GCRs when I've done a couple of videos.
But they say, now I saw this happen, and maybe it's just a coincidence, right? But I just started putting videos out, a couple months ago. I mean, and the one of the videos I put out about 3 weeks ago, when it hit 20,000 views, which was, to me, was like, wow, that's great. I couldn't believe it, because I've never done much with it. It hit 20,000 views. The next day, they changed the rule at YouTube, and they were no longer going to do what they normally do, like the natural algorithm that would promote, the content that was in my video that would match what somebody else was watching, right? So they said they're not going to promote any conspiracy-based videos anymore, right? So the very next day, and then I watched every video after that would, it like take so much longer just to get to 2,000 or 3,000. It takes so much longer, because they're just trying to suppress the message.
Just ask people to go ahead and copy and paste the link in their Facebook, and to leave comments and give the thumbs up, because those things affect those algorithms. Because what they do is they put they weight it down, so you can overcome the weight that they put on there by having that upward pressure, the upward lifting energy of thumbs up and comments. So that helps overcome and breaks it. But if you literally take that link and have them post it in Twitter and post it in their Facebook, that does it. People will get to it. It won't show up on their to watch list, right? But it will show up, on other people's stuff, and you ask them to say the same thing. Share this. Please like and comment on it. You ask this, and if you can get it even going down 2 or 3 generations of people passing it on and asking them to do the same thing, it helps. It helps me. So I've been dealing with it for a while, but it can break it.
It's all new to me, so I'm going to do that now. That's great advice. Thank you for telling me that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, the other advice I have for you is change your view to go more horizontal, because
got you. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I know, but it's fine. But on sometimes when I showed you I recorded my screen back there, right? When you appeared on there, you were so thin.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was. I'm sorry. You know what? Next time we talk, I'll make sure. I forgot from Marilee told me that too.
It's one of those things. I did my very first video that way, up and down, right? It's natural, right? That's how you hold your phone.
Right.
but the rest of the whole world is in this horizontal landscape view. So so anyway, I switched the first day, but it's okay. I actually teach doing a video broadcast to the members of the Kringle Society. When our whole thing, we have 20,000 testimonials on our in the Kringle.cash back office, and so one of the things, you're taking advantage of the promotions. If you do a video, you get such a big amount of cookie points just for doing that you literally get a lot of coin. So teaching someone to do a video is very simple, right? Because people don't know how simple it is. It literally record, and then you just push it to your channel, and it's done. So it's easy, but people, they don't know. They don't know how easy it is to get accomplished. So that's the one advantage that YouTube has, is this has been worked out in a way that makes it so simple.
Yeah, I'm actually, at some point I'm going to take Project Speak, and I will make a something that is that doesn't have a censor. I'll make a version of YouTube. All of these things, I just feel like, we just have to remake them. We have to remake them with different leadership, different platforms, better ways to do.
I hear what you're saying, and there are a couple alternatives out there already. I've been like, why do I want to post on Twitter if I know they're going to do this? Why don't I just move everything to Gab, right? It's not real.video anymore. It's I forgot, they changed the name. I opened an account there, but YouTube is very convenient, right? It's so simple. So, but the American government gave all the money to start YouTube and to buy all that infrastructure, right? So even though it was set up as a private company and all this, but the investment came from us. So it's literally, it should be, at this point, I hate to say, I don't like the idea of regulation in general, but regulated to change it back into where there is no censorship. I mean, if you want to censorship, you should have some sort of ability to, register the type of content. I mean, if you want to remove porn, it should be up to the individual, right?
Right.
But if you want conspiracy theory, take it. The conspiracy theory doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that a group of people conspired, and there's a theory about it.
Well, it's funny because they even take off the theory. I say all the time, I am not a conspiracy theorist at all. I am a conspiracy realist. I mean, I'm reporting things that are conspiracy that are taking place, that I've seen with my own eyes, that I know for a fact are real and are happening. And you know what? I don't take a dime for it from anybody. So nobody's going to be like, well, you're making a living that way. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. So I do this because I want to be free. I want all of us to be, and I want people to be able to make decisions themselves. But you're right. It's not theory. These are facts. And
yeah, some people were saying this. I have the monetized ads on my YouTube channel. I put it on because I'm investigating, but now I'm punished, right? because they'll restrict the amount of advertising. I know that I'm not making as much advertising, coming off of it as well. So why should I actually have it turned on? No, it's by default it's turned on. And I was thinking, well, I should probably just, not do monetized ads with YouTube and restrict them, because they're not going to be making advertising from it either, right? Because they're making money from what I'm doing, So why don't I just turn it off and put my own ads? I mean, I do the Bitcoin mining, abundancemine.club. I do the Kringle coin, and so those things are really, more of a way to to move out abundance into the world, why do I want to feed them? Feed YouTube?
Look, I agree with you 1,000%. And the things you're doing are, I mean, I've talked to you about this. You know, you're trying to help people, really. So I mean, if you ever seen any of my videos, I mean, and I don't know, but I have advertising turned off because, I mean, even on the Speak Project and on Garden Camelot, I made it a point. The Speak Project is the most condensed amount of intel you can get anywhere that doesn't have any advertising, it doesn't ask for donations, and it doesn't sell products. It is literally like a public service. Like, here is the truth. So, and I did that. Why I did that is because I don't want people throwing stones at me trying to say I'm just part of the machine. You know, it's like, to me, what's more valuable to me than money is my integrity. You know, I need to know that when and look, we all got to survive, don't get me wrong, so I don't begrudge anybody either.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, look, I'm dedicated to bringing this money in for the world, and I need my integrity to stay intact. Because as soon as I start taking money for things like that, even now, it's like, you know, we're paying legal fees, you know, to do background checks in a trust for $80, and people are still throwing rocks at me, right? And I'm just like, you know, like, get over yourself. You know, while you're sitting in your mom's basement.
I know that you know, that's so cheap for a trust. I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, I mean, a trust is an agreement, right? That's all it is an agreement. It's a structure that has certain parts, and an attorney makes it for you, right? And it takes some time to prepare the documents. That's nothing. You know, in regards to, you go to get an attorney to do anything for you and you're not spending $300. It's amazing. I mean, it's most likely, I would say, a trust is going to cost you $1,500 minimum. And most likely it could be $3,000, you know. So
Yokoyama Legal, I mean, this man gave up his whole life and just moved to New York, right? I mean, he gave up his life, brought his team. I mean, he is dedicated to the cause, you know, and he did that to support what we're doing here, and he's to support me, and he's one of my best friends. And I mean, thank God for people like that, right, who are giving all they have, you know. So, and things like that to me are so amazing because, you know, it's the willingness to give everything so that we can change everything. And really, I feel your point about this earlier, but to really empower people, you know, to give them an opportunity to be free. If a few more of us do that, if we just do that, you know, a few of these people in power would just wake the F up and realize you are literally killing yourself, and you're following orders of dead people. I mean, they're just following the last orders Marduk gave before he died, right? It's just amazing, man. Right now is the time. This is the breakthrough moment of everything. This is the time where if we could just tap into that reality that's in people, the core power of that we all know is true. You know,
this is the time. You're right. This is a once and a forever. I mean, this hasn't happened before, so it's not more than once in a lifetime. It's once in all of the lifetimes that we've experienced this for whatever 16,000 years. You know, for however long that has been. We are also elevated. You know, spiritually, we're elevated. In a technology way, where have the ability to communicate around the world. I mean, we're on the opposite sides of the planet right now, and we're communicating. These tools are in our hands right now, and we need to act. We need to do things. Everything that we need to take these steps, take action. You know, I'm even, you know, I said, well, why am I not doing more videos? Before I was on every day doing a video, and I haven't for the last, 4 or 5 months. I've been kind of doing some other things. I said, oh yeah, I'll do a video on that. Oh, then I'll do a video. But I've been delaying that. I said, but no, I should make the effort to make sure that I'm doing videos on any little thing that pops up, because if I find it'll be helpful for people, if I make a little bit of effort, to contact, Stefan and say, hey, let's do another video because this was an interesting blog that you put up there. That's what I said today, right? So, and this will help people have an understanding, wake up about certain things that we're talking about. It this little bit of more information gets out there, people start opening up to, well, there's more to it than maybe what I thought, right? And they think, and they start thinking, experience some not critical thinking systems in their brain start going off, right? And they can rely on those.
Dan, look, I'll do a video if we keep it down to like 20 minutes, I'll do a video with you every day, man. Whatever, because I'm with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've been going on for a little while yet. Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm like this. Whatever is in agreement with the natural law of the planet, the laws we have to abide by, if it's legal and we can do it, I'm about it. And I'll tell you, I mean, it's what, I don't know, it's 2:30 in the morning here. And when I get done with you, I have to make phone calls to China. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm trying to do my part, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure I can, with a clean conscience, I can say, look, I did my part, and I'm in, I'm all in. Right. So I'm like, look, we could change it together. So I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
All right, let's do it. Well, let's see if we can do some 20-minute videos. So that will be good. We'll keep it down to maybe some whatever that current issue is of the day, and we'll hit it up.
Yeah.
I can usually go on. I'm set up pretty well. Well, here, let me show you something here. This is my view.
Oh God. Listen, I don't want to hear you complain ever again. Look at that place. If I showed you my view right now, it make me cry.
So I lived on the beach in Santa Monica, California, Los Angeles area, beautiful, area. And I know if I had this view there, it would be like a, $3 million house, right?
I just got colder after seeing that. It just got colder, I mean, I was cold before. Now I'm freezing looking at that. So,
well, it's a warmer day today. It's probably in about the 85 range. Yeah. So it's getting into the
warmer here today too. It's in the range of about 35. So.
I have a couple friends off in Utah, and I talk with them. So anyway, he's shoveling snow.
I would take snow, because with snow, at least I can take my kids sled riding and stuff. It's not even snow here. It's just cold. I don't know why. No snow this year. Nothing. Not one real snow the whole year so far. And now tomorrow I'm going to get like a blizzard, but we'll see. Yeah,
well, it's just that global warming. You got to watch out for it.
They're actually talking about it's a solar minimum, right? That's what's really. It's actually, come on. All right, Dan. Look, I gotta go take this call, man. So nice to talk to you as always. And you let me know some time whenever you're game, man. I'll support them.
All right, let's get it done. All right, you have a good one.
All right, you too, man. Bye.
Well, I hope that you were enjoying that interview. I found it very informative. I'm having a good time talking with Stefan about these things. And now I want to just add here at the end, please subscribe. Please go ahead and join us on this mission, really, to get this information out. It's highly important that you copy the link for this video and paste it on your Facebook, paste it on your Twitter, and ask others, just after you post it on your Facebook, put in your comment down below, or or both in the header, or when you add a link, saying, please share this. It's important. Please give positive comments. Please give thumbs ups. It's highly important we break through and get to the information that is important for us all. We all have to wake up. Where we go one, we go all. We need to start making moves, and this is why it's highly important. And I also would say, if you would like to support things that I'm participating in, I've started a Bitcoin mining operation called abundancemine.club. You're welcome to join me. It's going to be based on solar energy, off-grid completely, except where we connect to the internet for the mining. Then also, if you're interested in a grassroots cryptocurrency that is not market-based, that is only based upon the number of members and tied to the price of gold, I highly suggest you join in Kringle.Coin and just get a hold of a little bit of free coin that's given to you. It's about the value of an ounce of gold right now. So I would highly suggest you go ahead and just complete it. It's the only real thing you have to do is spend $10 for a lifetime wallet fee. But there's lots of promotions, so you can get lots of coin. I'll go put those links down below as well. So please, if you like to participate in any of those, let me help you earn in the crypto world, and then you'll be helping me in return. So thank you, and we'll look forward to the next video. Bye-bye.